morning, everyone. I'm here to present to you my cell-to-cell communication disease, Waardenburg Syndrome. But first, what is cell communication? Cell communication is a process of cells communicating and working together to perform important bodily functions necessary for survival. There are two types of cell signaling: local cell signaling, where the cells have to be touching, and long-distance cell signaling, where the cells don't have to be touching. Here are an image of the four different types of cell signaling. Autocrine, where the signal is sent out and received all into the same cell. Paracrine, the signal does not need to travel far, only to adjacent cells or cells nearby. Juxtacrine, the cells are touching each other and the signal moves between the cells without having to travel a long distance. And endocrine, cells release hormones that act on distant target cells in the body. That would be an example of long distance. When cells don't communicate properly, the result could be devastating birth defects, diseases, and disorders. Waardenburg syndrome is caused by mutations in the EDN3, MITF, EDNRB, PAX3, SNAI2, and SOX10 genes. 6 different genes on 6 different chromosomes. These genes are involved in the formation and development of several types of cells, including pigment-producing cells called melanocytes. Melanocytes make a pigment called melanin, which contributes to skin, hair, and eye color, and plays an essential role in the normal function of the inner ear. There are 3 ways you can inherit Waardenburg syndrome. Autosomal dominant, which means an affected person has a parent with the disease. Type 2 and 4 are autosomal recessive, which means both parent has a copy of the mutated gene but does not show any signs or symptoms. And the rarest cases of obtaining it would be new mutations in the gene, with both parents having no prior history to Waardenburg syndrome. Waardenburg syndrome affects 1 in every 40,000 people and accounts for 2 out of 5 of all congenital hearing losses. 1 and 2 are more common, and 3 and 4 are more rare. Waardenburg syndrome could often be diagnosed by a doctor observing obvious clinical features, like hair, skin, and eye pigmentation, and in some cases deafness. Skin pigmentation would be having patches of white skin around your body. Hair would be white forelocs, usually right here. And eye pigmentation would be bright blue eyes or heterochromatic eyes. Type 1 and 3 are caused by mutations in the PAX3 gene. The PAX3 gene directs the activity of other genes that signal neural crest cells to form specialized tissues or cell types, such as nerve tissue and pigment-producing cells called melanocytes. Mutations in the PAX3 gene destroys the ability of the PAX3 protein to bind to DNA and regulate the activity of other genes. Here's a diagram of it. Type 2 are caused by mutations in the MITF gene. The MITF interacts with LEF1 to regulate its own transcription through LEF1 binding sites on the MITF promoter. The LEF1 is an important factor in the WNT signaling pathway. The WNT signaling pathway is an ancient and evolutionary conserved pathway that regulates crucial aspects of cell fate determination, cell migration, cell polarity, neural patterning, and organogenesis during embryonic development. The WNT signaling pathway either uses nearby cell-to-cell communication or same-cell communication. Failed regulation of the MITF gene potentially leads to pigmentary and hearing abnormalities. Here is a photo, diagram. Type 4, the EDNRB and the gene encoding its ligand, EDN3, were the first genes described to be associated with Waardenburg type 4. They are involved in the endothelin signaling pathway, which has an important role in the development of neural crest-derived cell lineages. Mutations in the EDNRB and the EDN3 affects the endothelin signaling pathway directly. Here is a diagram. Each type has different symptoms. Type 1, they have a wide space between their eyes. About 20% of them have hearing loss and they have pigmentary problems. Type 2, they do not have a wide space between their eyes. About 50% of them have hearing loss and they have the pigmentation problems. Type 3, they have a wide space between their eyes and a broad nose. They have pigmentary problems, and they often have malformations in the upper limbs, like fused fingers, for example. They often have cleft lip or cleft palate, and sometimes intellectual disabilities. Type 4 would be changes in pigmentation. People with type 4 often have another disease called Hirschsprung disease. Hirschsprung disease is an intestinal disorder that causes blockages in the intestines and colon and could cause severe constipation. Here is a boy with the hair pigmentation, and he has a white space between the eyes and a broad nose. There's a ferret with Waardenburg syndrome because Waardenburg syndrome does not only affect humans. Here is an example of a boy with the bright blue eyes and hair pigmentation, and that's a boy with the skin pigmentation and hair pigmentation. Treatments would include cochlear implants or hearing aid to treat hearing loss, developmental support such as special schools for hearing loss, a colostomy bag or surgery to prevent or remove blockages in the intestines, surgery to correct cleft palate and cleft lip, cosmetic changes such as dyeing the hair or using colored contacts would fix your pigmentation problems. Support may need support to manage their condition, particularly if it's not something that is easily changed. Support groups, family counseling, and education about the disease can help. There's no cure for Waardenburg syndrome. There has not been any further research that promises a cure for Waardenburg syndrome, but has found a way to prevent it. Testing, a way to prevent it would be DNA testing. They would take your blood and they would screen it for DNA that has genetic mutations linked to Waardenburg syndrome. The treatments listed are the best and maybe only options to help a patient. Waardenburg syndrome is not life-threatening and should not affect a person's life expectancy. Now, how is this a self-communication disorder? Okay, well, mutations in genes like the MITF, EDNRB, and EDN3 directly affects pathways such as the WNT signaling pathway and the endothelin signaling pathway. Mutations in result, melanocytes and neural crest cells are the most affected cells due to the miscommunication of the cells. My board is black and white to signify the pigmentation problems, I guess. And that's all. Thank you.